Let's turn our attention to the Canadian men's national team. And guys, if all goes according to plan, they're actually going to play 4 World Cup qualifying matches over a span of 10 days beginning on June 5th. But we know, Gareth, John Herdman has some juggling to do. So what does he do exactly with his lineup to get the best performance possible against the opponents?
It's a great question. It's not going to be easy, is it? 4 games in about 10, 11 days. It's exceptionally difficult, and a lot of high-pressure football coming Canada's way. There's a deep squad for a reason. There's a group of other players who are coming in to help train with the individuals. And as for Aruba, I mean, the first game is the softest of the bunch. You're expected to win. You should win against a team that will be better than the group from Aruba that we saw in March, but still a team that you should be able to handle. So the way that I would approach things, I have no idea if Herdman's thinking the same way. I really play a group of players who I don't plan on being in my starting 11 or really in that core group of players that I'm going to need against Suriname or the next round against Haiti or Nicaragua. That first game is kind of the game that you can kind of float by a little bit. I hate to say it, but it's kind of the truth. But you have to have your best players ready for 3 games that are going to determine your fate, whether you get into the Oct or not. And those 3 games are going to come fast and furious, and you're going to have to rely on your best players for those games. So Aruba, 1 game plan. The next 3, I think that's going to look a little bit different.
Well, John Herdman released the squad on Saturday, and speaking of some key players, Atiba Hutchinson not on it. We know he picked up some niggles, playing a long season, has some injuries there. And Ollie, is this concerning to not have that type of veteran presence of Atiba Hutchinson with the team?
I don't know if it's concerning. It's a loss for sure. I think with Atiba, you obviously miss a quality player, first of all, but what you also miss, and the part that I think is maybe a little concerning, is you miss his experience, right? You know, he's been to these areas of the world before, you know, been to Central America for qualifying. He knows what that experience is like, and he could guide some of the younger players who haven't experienced it before through that. So on top of being a very, very good player, you lose that kind of presence. That being said, I think if you were going to lose an important player at one position, it would probably be in central midfield, just given the depth that Canada have there. You know, obviously Stefan Eustáquio is going to be very important, but then you've got Sam Piette, you've got Marc-Anthony Kaye, you've got Jonathan Osorio, David Wotherspoon. You know, these guys I think can step up and be key players in this team in the biggest matches. So it's difficult when, you know, for all with the schedule we're talking about here and the congested games, if Atiba doesn't feel like he's fully healthy, he doesn't feel like he can really kind of withstand that, then I think you have to go with players who physically are able to do so. But he's a loss for sure.
Well, let's talk about that depth, Gareth, because, yeah, no Atiba, no Scott Arfield. Obviously, Ollie mentioned a bunch of players. Who would be your preferred midfielders, though, for those June qualifiers?
Well, Stefan Eustáquio is the first name on the team sheet, isn't he? And for me, there's a decision to be made about how attack-minded that you want to be, rather than providing players who can provide some cover at the back. So like I was speaking about Aruba versus Suriname, what Canada did against Bermuda, they essentially played Kyle Larin underneath Lucas Cavallini with Hoylett to the right and Davies to the left. That is an extremely attack-minded, you know, a group of 4 with 2 holding midfielders in behind. That, for me, would be my preferred formation. So that only allows 1 other player to play alongside Eustáquio. I think if you want to be a little bit more defensive-minded, Piette's the player that you plug into that position. If you want a player that's able to push a little bit forward, perhaps as Wotherspoon. We'll see on the health of Jonathan Osorio. He hasn't played a lot of football this year, but he's certainly a leader within John Herdman's team and a player that he rates highly. Then you have Marc-Anthony Kaye, who's playing regular football at LAFC and has been a regular for John Herdman in the past. So I think between those 4 players, or those 4 or 5 players, that's your core group, and you use them as the match suggests it's appropriate.
Well, guys, you know you have a deep team when we can sit here on our show and actually start talking about possible omissions. So, Ollie, was there any kind of glaring omission here, a player you felt should have been named to the squad and was left out?
I don't know about should have, because it's a strong group and I can understand maybe why, but I was a little surprised that Tesho Akindele wasn't in there. Just because when you look at the roster, you know, we've talked a little bit about how Jonathan David and Kyle Larin prefer to just play a little deeper maybe, play with a partner up front, and I think the only real out-and-out number 9 of that type that's in the squad is Lucas Cavallini. So I was a little surprised over maybe, you know, someone like Liam Fraser who hasn't played a lot, that they didn't go with a second striker, a real striker like Tesho Akindele up front. But honestly, it's a deep group, like you said, and you can kind of argue it either way.
I think Fraser comes in because they needed that midfielder that they lost with Atiba not being in the team. And Fraser played great in that 2-0 victory over the United States, and he'll get his chance most likely against Aruba. For me, it's right back Zachary Broguiard. He's been excellent. He was great with the under-23s, and you like to see that proper pathway from the under-23 program into the senior men's national team. He dealt with a little bit of a hamstring issue that cost him 3 games in Major League Soccer, but has come back with 2 really strong performances after that. It's just that right back position, Ollie. It's so stacked with Richie Larea, with Alistair Johnston. And if you need a third, I guess it's Tajon Buchanan, who gives you a little bit more flexibility going forward. He can play right back, he can play right wing, he can play all over the park. By the way, this is an appropriate time for our very own Oliver Platt to issue a personal apology to Tajon Buchanan, where Andy and I clearly said he'd be part of the Canadian men's national team setup. You questioned it, you didn't think he would be part of this group. So go ahead, the floor is yours. Go ahead and apologize to our friend Tajon.
Not apologizing. I didn't say that he wouldn't be part of the setup. In fact, I said
Yes,
I think I said that the Gold Cup would be his time to shine and his stage. What I'd said was that he's not a lock for this squad.
Playing here.
What I said was that he's not a lock, and I don't think he was a lock for this squad. You know, maybe I don't know whether injuries impacted whether or not he was in or out. But I'm not ready to call him a lock yet. I think he's a fantastic young player, and I'm interested to see him, but not a lock.
Look, that's
I wish I
such
could settle this
Guardiola
dispute.
move. Just apologize. Just admit you were wrong.
You're so bad. I just can't remember what you said, so I can't really settle the dispute. We're just going to have to go back to the video and get producer Kyle to do that for us. But guys, on paper and on the field, this Canadian team is so strong, but we keep talking about Suriname being their biggest challenge when it comes to round 1. In particular, because so many players being added to this squad have played for the Netherlands at the youth level, and we know they produce a lot of strong players. So what kind of a threat, Gareth, does Suriname pose for Canada?
They're a legitimate threat. Don't let the name of the country kind of put thoughts like this is some minnow in your head, because it's not the case. These are all Dutch players that are playing for Suriname, who are playing based upon their parents' heritage and whatnot. Sharon Cherry is a great player. He's been sold for multiple millions of dollars on multiple occasions. He's playing in Israel right now, banging in goals, played for QPR, played for Groningen as well. He's a true goal scorer from an attacking midfield position. He's probably the team's best player. Ryan Dunk, Galatasaray's captain's their new center back. Geraldo Becker, a great player for Union Berlin, who had a great season in the Bundesliga. He provides a ton of pace. He's the 3rd fastest player in the Bundesliga after who? Alphonso Davies, who he's going to be going up against potentially in that game. This team is dangerous, and it's going to require one heck of an effort by Canada. Not to mention, Suriname's coming into this game against them with an extra day off. The schedule makers have allowed them to play Bermuda, extra day. Canada then plays, and then Suriname plays Canada. So, and again, we're playing in a neutral venue. We're playing in Chicago. We're not even playing in this country. So nothing's going to be easy when it comes to this matchup.
Yeah, look, it's going to be a difficult match, but guys playing in Israel, guys playing for, you know, ordinary Dutch clubs, I'm not going to say it frightens me either. I'm not going to say it frightens me either, and I think if you want to qualify for a World Cup, we have to be beating these teams. Like, if we want to talk about the next round and playing against USA and Mexico, all of that's irrelevant if you can't beat Suriname. So you have to expect Canada to start putting these teams away on a regular basis.
But what about John Herdman as the coach? We know he's had success on the women's side, back-to-back Olympic bronze medals. But Gareth, what's on the line for him?
I don't think that much, to be honest with you. Like, competitive pride, I don't know what the question's actually pertaining to, because John Herdman's job is not on the line with these upcoming games. It can't be. I mean, the Canadian men's national team played, what, 2 exhibition games behind closed doors with a makeshift team in 2020. In 2021, he's only had, this is his 2nd Canadian men's national team camp. He's been doing most of his work behind the scenes. The reins are being passed over to John Herdman to take this program forward to 2026. He wants the group to qualify for the 22 World Cup in Qatar. He wants to see the team do well at the Gold Cup, but there's been all kinds of obstacles thrown his way, which make it very difficult to analyze or assess, you know, the overall big picture effect of his leadership. All I know is that they beat the United States 2-0. Herdman had a masterclass that night, and I think that he's widely considered to be the right man to take this program going forward. I've seen or heard nothing that would kind of change my view on that whatsoever. So let's see how he does. I'm excited to see what he does with this group.
Oh, yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. I just wonder that if he manages to get them into the AUC this month, after that historic victory of the United States, like you said, I mean, where does he go down as far as head coaches in the Canadian system, right? Like that. Yeah, I guess, well, okay, Ollie, what do you mean there's a lot on the line? Where are you going with that?
I just think, look, you've got to deliver at this point. I'm not saying that he should be fired necessarily. I think you assess that after each cycle. But I just think there's a lot on the line here. Taking charge of this group of, you know, a golden generation of Canadian players, it's time to deliver. And I think he knows that. I think he's the right man for the job. I think he is going to do it. And what he's done over the past few months to prepare for this, I think I've been impressed by. But now it's time to deliver. I think these are massive, massive games, and it's up to him to show now that he's the coach who can help Canada take this next step.
But the players are still young. We all acknowledge that there's brighter days ahead. It's about how these young players are brought through. I'm being serious here. Like,
come on.
I get it, but it's a player that, just turned 20? Jonathan David, 21? Like, these players have long international careers ahead of them. I think it's about getting the most out of this. You're transitioning some of the older players out and bringing this younger core through, which is going to be representing Canada at a home World Cup in 2026. I think that Herdman's shown that his methodology, his preparation, him getting the buy-in from the players, getting players to change their association to join Canada, it ticks all the boxes. So I think everything's going in the right direction. And let's hope that over these next 4 games, that they can get the job done so we have some more games in the fall that we can truly judge where this program is at.
I think it's going in the right direction too, but we're talking about Suriname and Haiti or Nicaragua here. Like, these guys are good enough, and I think it'll be a massive missed opportunity. Sure, yeah, I know, and that should change because we have way too much quality. So I think it'll be a massive missed opportunity if they're not playing in the final round this year.
We'll go round 2 on this topic Thursday, gentlemen, but let's get to the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. Ollie, what would be your preferred starting 11 against Aruba?
Well, I agree with what Will said earlier, that you go with a completely changed team, I think, for this game and keep everyone fresh for the bigger games to come. So there's 2 players that I've got in this lineup who I'm not sure about having in here. One is Sam Piette. If you want to use him against Suriname, then I think you hold him out and maybe put Liam Fraser in there. Personally, I would go with Kea Eustachio, which is why I've got Piette in this team. And then the other one is Sam Adekubi. I think he plays against Suriname as well and is increasing in importance to this team. But I just don't see another left back on the roster, apart from Alphonso Davies, obviously, who can take this game. So that's why I've got him in. But other than that, I think it's guys who are probably going to be on the bench against Suriname.